Oh, she's not here. She's just sick. I actually have a question. She read.
Leanne, you fucked up.
Leanne just got a fever at home. She said she read an article about you experimenting on yourself, and she was wondering what you could you elaborate on that?
That was what I was just talking about. So I produce a lot of content on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. I have a podcast. I have an Alexa skill that just came out. I try everything on myself first, and then it goes to VaynerMedia and we help brands, and then I do it for other businesses that I own or operate.
Chris.
Because there's nobody stopping me, right? When I'm testing on myself, I can get the real data, versus when you have clients, they say no a lot.
Chris?
Yeah, what kind of weaknesses have you overcome to achieve success?
I think the biggest weakness I have is that I think I can do everything. I'm too optimistic, I'm too confident. I think I can do everything. So there was a lot of businesses I started in 2009, 10, 11, where I would have a partner and I wasn't able to deliver to the partnership because I had so much going on. And no matter how hard you work, no matter how fast you work, you still only have 24 hours. And so the biggest thing that I'm doing better today than I did a decade ago is I'm saying no more often, and I'm still saying yes way too much. It will always be my weakness. I just believe in myself too much that I can squeeze so much, but it is absolutely my weakness. And I think I know I'm getting better and better and better, but it's still hard for me because if I see an opportunity, I want to do it, right?
So how does that affect the people that you hire?
Your superpower, and it's usually the differentiation. You hire for the things that you don't do well just to not have a vulnerable flaw, but you hire for the thing that you're best at to explode your growth.
So a lot of the students here will probably be getting internships or jobs very soon. What are the things that you would recommend they look for in a potential employer? Is it the person that you're working for? Is it the brand? Is it the sector? Like what is it in the initial stages?
I think you have to be interested. I think the interest matters, but I would actually throw a curveball. I would say the volume of people that work at the company to create the widest net for you to make relationships. There's nothing you're gonna learn at an internship that is going to be that valuable to you in the long term, because the world's gonna change too much by the time you do it for real. The biggest value you will get in an internship is the people that you meet. Relationships are the constant. Information is becoming very, very, very not valuable.
So how do you maintain relationships?
Effort. You have to provide more value to somebody than they give to you. The best thing you can do at an internship is to ask people what they need for you to do with your limited knowledge of the business. Self-awareness and empathy, humility, and then just trying to bring them the most. Basically the way I live my life is how do I guilt everybody into having a relationship with me? Like for example, this little setting we have right now, right? I'm basically in the back of my mind saying, how do I give such good information that in 17 years from today, one of you emails me or whatever, however we talk then, and say, hey, I want to do something with you, and I've got a funny story. Do you remember in 2017 when you went to Hong Kong and sat in a circle with a bunch of kids? I was one of those kids. You said something that helped me a lot, and now I want to do this with you. That's basically how my entire life works. Because that's the best way to sell, have it come to you.
So we were talking breakfast a little bit about what students are studying these days, and we had a discussion on coding, right? So how many of you here want to actually learn how to code or be a computer science graduate? How many of you intend to do that? Okay. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, what we talk, so I think it's going to become a very commoditized skill, and I actually think it's not a good bet for the financial returns of today for the future. Now, if you love coding more than breathing, the way I like buying and selling stuff, well then you should do that. But if you think you're gonna make the same economics that a developer makes today, you will not, because they were the ones of a generation when people weren't doing it that were right about where the world went, and so they were more valuable. Now you have an entire world that is learning how to develop, and so by supply and demand curves, it will become a commoditized skill. And so inevitably the price will go down for development, and that is not even talking about the commoditization of what technology can do and where the skills go. Now, if you tell me that's fine, Gary, but I'm going to develop in a language that's going to be the framework for virtual reality or augment, you can start getting into and if you're the best coder in the world, you'll find your financial freedom. And you may not be developing just because of the financial impacts. Like I said with my first statement, if it's your art form or your expression, then good for you. But I do think a lot of kids, and more importantly, a lot of parents think their kids will be financially safe if they become coders. And I think that's a naive point of view because you're not anticipating to where the world's going.
So what would you study if you were their age?
I would hope that you were as fortunate as I am that at this young of an age, you knew your calling. I had the greatest gift. Even though I had to eat shit and everybody made fun of me, I knew that I had already won because as a 12, 13-year-old, I knew who I was gonna be. There was nothing else I could think of. There was no debate. It was binary. I was literally willing to look society in its face and go like right at it because I knew who I was. I'm just wondering if somebody in here actually knows what that is, but doesn't have the courage or the luxury of the mother that I had that's embracing that desire because of the world their parents see and they want for their children. And it's so cliche, for immigrant parents, for Asian parents, for Hong Kong parents to push their kids towards what they think is right versus what the kid thinks is right. I got very lucky. I looked at the world in its face, I was confident, but I also had a mother that gave me the air cover to get away with it.
So how would you deal with that? Obviously, a lot of Asian parents in the circle around here, what if the Asian parents are saying, hey, you should be a banker, you should be a lawyer, and they were actually be an entrepreneur? How would you, your 12-year-old self, how would you approach your mom then?
I don't want to sit here and talk about something that is not fair to you. It's a very difficult situation. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, just because I'm gonna tell you to go tell your parents to go fuck themselves? That's only gonna work so much. Like, to me, that is something that I don't have the audacity to give you advice around because all of you have your own family situations. I don't know you. Here's what I would say. Appeasing your parents is a long-term vulnerability to your relationship with your parents because you will resent them. That feels very foreign right now, but when you're 29, when you're 42, when you're 61, what you think you're doing to make your parents happy becomes the thing that ultimately destroys your relationship with your parents because you will resent them. You just will. That's just true. And that's tried and true. And your parents, here, you know what? I'll give you one piece of advice. Pay very close attention to the relationship your parents have with their parents. And then try to understand what happened there. If your parents were forced to do something and they don't have a healthy relationship with your grandparents, you should pay attention. If they weren't, you've got to look at that. That's a very important insight that could maybe show you a path or create a pillar of conversation. The one thing that has always worked on parents when you fight against them is when you use the example of their relationship with their parents against them. That has always been the one move that gives you some opening of a chance. I helped one friend through that. He basically said to his dad, Dad, you want to have the same relationship that you have with your dad? And that gave him the opening to do his thing.
Erin?
Hustle? That's a really good point. So I think the most important word is hustle because I think it's the one thing that's the most controllable. Everybody here is only so smart, only so intuitive. There's only so much you can push, but putting in the hard work is so controllable. I would say the second most important thing besides hustle is self-awareness. And I would actually probably argue that I've become more fond of self-awareness even more so than hustle. If you really know who you are, you have a much better chance of being successful because if you care about yourself, you're gonna put yourself in a position to succeed. And so I would tell you more, if you took anything from our time together, spend as much time trying to figure out who you are. Who you are for yourself within yourself when you talk to yourself. Not what people think you are, not what some people think you're good at, not what you wish you were. The biggest mistake that people make is they wish they were something versus realizing what they are.
Samta?
Empathy. Empathy is my number one favorite trait. If you can feel for the other person, you will then be less political and you have the emotional strength to be the bigger person, and every day we have friction with each other, and the way you can go faster is if you're the first person to say, I'm gonna be the bigger person and let us move forward, even though I think I'm right. I think I'm right all the time. Right? Like I have confidence, I have a history of success, but the amount of times that I am the bigger person and let my people do things that I disagree with is always, because I win either way. Either they're right and I've learned something, or far more often, they're wrong and I get to make fun of them.
Wesley?
Have you ever made a business decision that messed up?
Have I ever made a business decision that messed up a relationship with anyone? I'm sure, because a lot of times you're making decisions where there's collateral damage and you don't realize it, right? But with the people that I've most cared about, no. And I think not taking any equity in Wine Library, me and AJ, my brother and I started a business. I was already a very successful businessman. I had a lot of equity in social media. He was a kid coming out of college, and we were 50-50 partners when we had no reason to be. And so I have always left money, it's very similar to your question. I don't value money very much. I have enough, I always have enough, I always had enough. If I make $35,000 a year, that's enough because I don't spend 36, right? So I've always not valued money, which has allowed me to be in a place, money's usually the issue. So because money has not been at the forefront, I haven't burned, I've run two successful family businesses, which are very hard. Family businesses have a lot of emotion and a lot of baggage. But I'm sure my college friends who I didn't take into the business might have not liked that, right? I'm sure, acquaintances that have worked for me that I had to fire, I'm sure quietly don't like that, And there's a lot of lightweight relationships where I didn't know the person, I hired them, they worked for me for 3 years, it went well, and then it didn't go well. And then I'm sure those people, you have to be willing to go there. You know what my big thing is? Intent. I've never, ever done anything with the intent of hurting somebody, ever. And that makes me feel very happy about life.
Charmaine?
So, if you were to build a new business, what kind of business would it be?
Today, if I was to build a new business today, so I'd probably build an IP-based business. And what I mean by that is intellectual property, like a cartoon. Like I'm obsessed with like Star Wars and Transformers and Hello Kitty and anything. Like once you own it, you own it. And I think that's one of the most ownable things in a world where all these big companies like WeChat and Tencent and Amazon and like they're winning, right? They've become the layer above the internet itself. We're about to live in the internet. So who else can make big business? The people that own the IP. Got it? So I would literally try to acquire or try to create original intellectual property that I could monetize. That seems to me like a very big opportunity.